to be honest, when it relates to wellness or well-being programs, not everyone's even ready for it. Like any appropriate advisory relationship, it starts with assessment and lots of questions, right? So the assessments we do really determine what the issues are, whether the organization has all the right other health qualities to it. If you're a follower of this organizational health model, is there trust? Is there safety? Is there a good accountability?
Hello, workplace wellness champions. Welcome to episode 13 of the Virtual Vibe podcast, where we discuss HR strategies for a happy, healthy, and connected workforce. My name is David Howe. I'm the CEO at Bright Breaks and host of the Virtual Vibe. And today I'm super excited to chat with Roger Thorpe. Roger is the president at Thorpe Benefits. Thorpe is an integrated benefits and wellness consulting company in the Greater Toronto area. So welcome to the podcast, Roger.
Hey, David. Nice to be here. Look forward to this.
For sure. Roger and I have been connected for, I think, a couple of years now. We've always connect, every few months, check in on the benefit space and the wellness space. I'm excited to share the insights that you have, working with lots of companies on the advising side of the benefit side. So I guess, Roger, before we dive in, would love to hear just a little more about your background and what Thorpe Benefits does.
Sure. Well, I'm the president of Thorpe Benefits. I represent a team of consultants who work both integratedly between the benefits world and the wellness world. So, interesting perspective that I hope to bring to this conversation. We are a specialist in that we work with mid-sized organizations, usually hired by senior level HR and finance roles, and I kind of like an upgrade to the typical benefit broker relationship. And of course, we bring a focus on employee health and well-being, and we integrate that into that benefit offering as an included service. So that's one of the big things that's different about our service. And we work with clients all across Canada.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's obviously what connected us was the Thorpe Benefits focus on wellness, and it's really cool to see, and that is a strong differentiator. And, I guess to kick things off at a higher level, like what are the changes in the benefits and wellness space that you've seen, recently over the last few years?
Yeah, there's a lot to go through on that. I would say that there's an overlying theme, of course, in business, in any organization, that competing for talent is difficult. So finding good people has meant that companies, organizations have to be a lot more creative, right? But creative not only in the tools and offerings of their total rewards program, but they also have to be a lot more human or caring in their approach, right? And because we are seeing blatantly people struggling, it's very urgent for employee health to come more to the forefront. So, the market has responded with tools like virtual care, telemedicine. So we're looking at ways to give people better access to healthcare. But our employers and our employees are telling us that they want these things to work together because they're hearing it and they want to respond. So I would say that the change is that it's now that it's not two separate issues; it's one. And where health issues are blending in with benefit issues, instead of just paying claims, it's now about prevention and health promotion. And there's a need to navigate that environment. It's too confusing, right, out there to do it alone. So that's really brought us to the conclusion that that's our job, is to support people and get alignment on those two things together. So that's my answer essentially as to how the changes have brought these things closer together, basically. Yeah.
Right. And are you finding companies are really recognizing that urgent need more than they have in the past?
I think they are, again, because they can't, find people, bring great people on board unless they're authentic about delivering on it. So it's not just a checkbox of throwing in a tool in the corner. you actually have to, and that's what we try to train our clients to do, is to build support and community around the offering, right? So, you can have even an EAP and all the things that connect with the EAP, but if you don't ever talk about mental health or health in general, if it's an issue you want people to keep to themselves, then those tools, as people know, get left and their utilization is often very, very low. So the promotion and communication around them and the safety of that conversation is, I think, where those things ultimately end up getting used more so.
Right. And trying
Yeah.
to get ahead of those issues, getting ahead of the burnout, preventing, as you said, is a big thing.
Oh, it's too relevant. It's too there in front of us not to do something about it. So, as I said, it's very visible, but it's also in the assessments that we do. It's obvious from the employer's point and the employee's point that it's top of the list.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
And so when you're, advising companies in your kind of portfolio of customers, how are you recommending and how should other leaders think about actually building a wellness program?
Good question. I think, like any appropriate advisory relationship, it starts with assessment and lots of questions, right? And that, to be honest, when it relates to wellness or well-being programs, not everyone's even ready for it. So the assessments we do really determine what the issues are, whether the organization has all the right other health qualities to it. If you're a follower of this organizational health model, is there trust? Is there safety? Is there a good accountability? Do people feel like they have a purpose in their work? So some of those fundamental foundations of a healthy organization, along with the assessments of what employees are saying, that determines readiness, in our opinion. And a lot of companies aren't ready, truly, and they need to be told that, because if they're not ready, that the program is likely going to fail. So we need to be true to that. Of course, building a plan requires leadership buy-in. And so if we don't have that, we don't have champions and people willing to talk about it, then it may not do well. We need, as I said, we definitely need to listen to employees. So building a plan is always based on what our employees are asking and telling us that they need. If we can respond to that, then we're going to hit it. And our feeling is, building a plan, it has to be a foundation of education, and then applying what you're learning in everyday life and everyday work life, right? Doing that as part of a whole work community is where it works perfectly. So I'm learning, I'm applying, and I'm doing it with other people in a supportive way. To us, that's the model that needs to be incorporated. Um, Finally, just building a plan, I think it has to be done on the basis that this is a long-term thing. We are not going to make changes or inroads very quickly, but if we're consistent and we do it, slowly and consistently over time, we're definitely going to see results. But we also have to be realistic about those results. Like, people would ask, am I going to see reductions in my drug claims? Oh, maybe, but let's maybe use other KPIs maybe to determine what success is. And we can talk about that as well down the road here.
Yeah. Okay. So, a couple points there that I think are worth digging in. So do you kind of have a system for, identifying those challenges early on? So is that like, interviewing or surveying employees as an example? And then on top of that, is that, let's say a company comes and they're interested in that and you run some assessment. To me, that would be one way to get leadership buy-in, because I agree with you, leadership buy-in is kind of crucial. If that's not there, the whole thing falls apart. So is that the tactic to actually get leadership buy-in?
You're right. If you can show leadership what's really happening with their employee population in true fact, and beyond even just the anonymous survey approach, maybe moving it to more of a focus group. So we took our survey results, we had a conversation with your people, and this is truly what they're worried about, right? They are expecting you to respond to this. So I think that, you have to get the truth, And if you feel at our end that you're not seeing an authentic approach to helping, then I think it is our job to say, I think we need to be very patient with this and be very careful with this. But like any analysis, it starts with good assessment. So that is absolutely the right place to start.
Right, for sure. Are there what percentage of companies come to you already kind of bought in, or what percentage of companies come in and need to be sold on getting that leadership buy-in?
It's interesting you say that, because I think it's kind of it's like they're talking from two different places, or different stakeholders are competing on the business case. So there's an HR motivation to provide a new benefit or a new feature to attract and keep people, and then is there a business case in terms of building better productivity and engagement? And we know that healthier employees are more productive, and we know that more productivity means generally more profitability. So the business case is not hard to eventually get to, but in their heart of hearts, you absolutely are going to see different levels of buy-in. So I think that's where getting everybody to the same place and then moving forward is the smart approach, rather than leaving people behind who may not engage in the program. So if leadership doesn't want to talk about anything, be involved, and they're probably even more willing to give up too early, because that's another component of this, right? And you're familiar with this, is that you put a plan in, you want it to stick, and you don't want to give up. So you have to, as I said before, set expectations properly. But you do have to build more about motivation and buy-in over time, so that people don't give up on this whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a whole conversation in and of itself, is that ongoing buy-in. But okay, so, now somebody's bought in, you've got leadership bought in, you've done some assessments, and hey, here's some data that supports the business case for really, creating more of a in-depth wellness program or initiative. So how do those champions then decide on what tools we might use as part of that program?
Yeah, that's where it all ultimately ends up. So if we're looking at the assessment and the interest, and we're maybe going to do some general education as a foundation, are there good tools that are going to complement that in the right way? So I think that's where it's important to carefully assess the options and realize that the tool itself is not always the solution. The tool is a component of the strategy, right? And I think if we recognize that if we support the tool well with an overall communal approach to health, then we're much more likely to see that a tool like Bright Breaks is going to be used, it's going to be appreciated, it's going to be talked about, and it will gain momentum. So, I think we would certainly look at any tool and assess it on how complex it is, how easy it is to use, how much effort it takes for employees. Because you can go to the extreme ends of a tool where you're tracking activities and you've got reward systems and challenges, and that just may not be what an organization is ready for. So I would say that assessing tools, it often comes down to simplicity, and the easier and more simple, likely the better, especially at the beginning phase and stage of a wellness solution. Yeah.
Right. And, when you're helping, companies pick these tools, are you thinking about these tools as, hey, this is, as you said, it's a longer term thing, we don't want to give up these things too early? Or are you quick to adjust those tools as you're gathering data throughout the process of probably years of understanding, utilization and impact towards that business case you originally set forward?
Well, if you put in the right work at the front end to assess, you hopefully will hit the mark more likely on the stack. So if the tool stack, so to speak, complements each other, there's a better chance that you're going to be able to carry forward with most of those tools over time. So if you're leveraging your EAP, you're leveraging where Bright Breaks might fit in, recognizing that the usage of these things is going to move around from place to place. And so we measure utilization more from the entire suite of tools rather than the just like, ooh, that one's really not working. Well, that could just be seasonal, or that could be based on people like to dip their toe into one thing and then they move on to something else. So yeah, so that could be how it kind of gets compared and stacked.
Yeah, that's really awesome advice. Like that's, having the portfolio of tools and measuring them in aggregate versus, in just from our experience, companies that have multiple initiatives as part of that plan and not lean on one single initiative. That's sometimes a case where too much pressure is on one individual tool, and one tool isn't going to solve all the issues for every single employee.
You got it. And again, if you can be true to the fact that you're supporting it all beyond just the tool itself, you're going to have likely better usage utilization as a whole. So you can't just stand back and expect it to do its thing on its own.
So, one of the big challenges for a lot of, HR leaders or other champions of these programs is getting budget for this. So, we've presented the business case, we've assessed some tools. So how do you advise and think about budget? Where do you find it and what's reasonable?
Yeah, it's funny because we would ask maybe an organization, what's your current budget for employee health or well-being? And they would, of course, generally say, well, we don't have one. And what do you think it should be? I have no idea. We will sometimes get the same answer on the benefits side because it's really just a number, and it is what it is. But it's probably a good idea to have it quantified. So assuming we can eventually get there and maybe do it on a per employee basis, some people like to do it on a per month basis. Let's use that as our baseline that we can work from. So where do we get the budget from if it doesn't exist? In many cases, we need to reallocate from other places. So benefits is the natural thing for us to look at first. Can we find efficiencies where we can maybe divert a percentage of the spend from a reactive side, pay claims, to more of a proactive? That makes logical sense to start moving some of it towards the proactive. But it might also be possible to look at how health and well-being also relates to performance and training and development. So I like the idea of looking at even an L&D budget as being, if we can affect performance through more energy and healthier employees, then that is a form of, expanding that person's impact. And then I say, it's just a matter of starting sort of small and building from there. There really is no example of an appropriate wellness budget because it depends on the appetite, but I think starting somewhere and building upon it, recognizing, of course, that the money's generally spent on healthcare in the right way, return 2 or 3 times in many, many ways, right? If you buy into that or not, I think you could realize that that is probably a pretty safe bet. But initially, obviously, we need people to take a bit of faith in that, start somewhere, and then maybe expand over time. So that's my confusing answer related to budgets.
Yeah, I mean, that's good life advice too in many ways, right? You start small, you try to gather some insights and then really build on top of it. And I think a lot of folks, that is the best way to go, because starting, in a big way can be overwhelming and it can be hard to kind of, track and implement everything. So I guess that feeds us into, measuring the success of these things, right, over time. Because if you're championing this program, if you're an HR leader, reporting back to leadership and saying, hey, remember that thing we started this year, 12 months later, here are some ways that we're measuring success. How do you recommend looking at success of a wellness program?
Mm-hmm. I would say the place to start is to, again, go back to your original baseline data and your assessment of where you started from. If there is a way to quantify, how I feel about my health right now, where am I on a level in terms of my stress levels, my energy levels. I would love to look at that a year later and see that we're seeing increasing or improvement, right? So that would be the first place I would go. And then, with some level of realistic expectation, I'd like to see some movement on number one, the participation in the program. So if I see bigger utilization on the platform or in the program itself, I think that that's an indication that this is an important thing for employees and they're grabbing onto it maybe more and more. And then we're going to start to hopefully see results in our absence data. Or I'd like to even think that sales teams, I might throw this out there, but if you look at your sales team as it relates to sales activity, a lot of that is going to come down to energy. So if I'm a salesperson and I'm grinding out my outreach on a Thursday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, am I going to go and make that extra call or reach out or research? Yes, I will if I have reasonable amount of energy. But if I'm tanking and I haven't slept well and I'm not, feeding properly or exercising, you're not going to get the same amount of activity out of a salesperson. So sales activity, I think you might be able to correlate that with some health activity or participation. And I think a lot of directors of sales and VPs of sales would say, yeah, I know when my people have energy and when they don't. So I think this probably connects. So that's just another outlier, a way of looking at results.
Yeah. And I mean, talk about getting leadership buy-in. If you can tie that to, more revenue at the company, that's going to be one of the best ways to get buy-in.
Down the road, yeah, you're definitely going to want to see this. And even longer term, corporate reputation, what are you known for? Is your NPS score growing? Is your Glassdoor looking better? Your engagement scores may improve. So all in all, I think if your organization is known as a healthy place to work and that they embrace and support that, that's definitely going to help you in terms of attraction, retention.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
And then, so in the world of Thorpe Benefits, like what is the role of the benefits broker in all of this? So I think you tied everything really well together in that without the early work around strategy and assessments and everything, all of this stuff at the later part starts to fall apart, because if you didn't do that initial work, measuring the results is harder. So, how does the benefits broker support that entire initiative and that entire program?
Well, I think it comes down often to proving that you've made an impact. So the old way of looking at a benefit broker was, I'll see you at renewal, and otherwise, I'll call you when I think of a question, and there has to be a lot more action. So the action let's get things done. Let's actually see some results. So the role is accountable to that, I believe. Now, at least that's what I think HR and finance people should expect from the role. They should take what they're investing in that relationship and see some return. So as long as there's proaction, there's an accountability to measuring and seeing results. No doubt, I think that the health of the employee is now front and center with our job. It's how can we impact that, because it will impact so many other things. So where wellness, was maybe more of an HR side of the desk project that couldn't really get done, I think it's our job to step up and lead it. And because there is so much out there in the world of health and well-being, it's somebody's job to bring some clarity and wisdom around it. And if there are tools to compare to show the client without bias, here's what might fit for you. And let's take the sales side of that out of the picture, right? And again, if we're establishing goals here of what we want to achieve, I think that we can be really happy about actually achieving things at the end of every year. And our clients, assess us and measure us on that. That's what our agreements are based on. So, yeah, so that's essentially how I would kind of design or redefine the role.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this was really, I think interesting and full of, some gold in here. So I appreciate you sharing all the insights. If, folks are interested in a broker, they can check you out at Thorpe Benefits. And where can people kind of connect with you, Roger, if they wanted to reach out and chat a little more?
Yeah, I think email or LinkedIn is fine. And I would say to people that any question, anything they want to talk about or get an opinion on, we really like to be we want people to feel that they can approach us without feeling like they're, opening up a like a pitch of some kind. So we really want people to ask us questions, think about how that might impact what they're doing. Without feeling any obligation. So an email to Roger at thorpebenefits.com or to reach out on LinkedIn, and we'd love to help. Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay. I recommend folks take that offer up. And, Roger, I really appreciate you taking the time today to have this chat. I think it was super helpful. So thank you. We'll chat again soon. And thanks everyone for tuning in today.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Always great talking to you.
Thank you so much, Roger. Take care. Bye.